Good morning, Matt Waldman. We're heading into a Biomageddon. There's going to be a lot of things that probably I'm going to feel that I wouldn't otherwise feel because 6 teams are on bye. That said, fuck a bunch of what I saw
Well, we can just end the show right there. How about that? All right. Bryce Young. How you feeling about Bryce Young after last week?
Let me put my David Tepper hat on. I'm going to be mildly more patient. Look, I think they talked about, Frank Reich talked about heading into this one, maybe, simplifying things a little bit. I don't know how much they simplified and what they did. He seemed to be processing his information better. Maybe he just had a little better protection. Maybe that's half of it. But there were signs that would leave me encouraged, right? And I think there have been the last couple of weeks. And I don't know if it's necessarily Bryce Young or having a great veteran receiver in Adam Thielen, who seems to be always available. But I thought watching this game in particular, I felt like he was the things that I was told he did good. The reason why he was the first pick overall, the fast processing ability and things like that, I felt like I saw signs of that.
If Vince Lombardi were Jimmy Carter, David Tepper would be Billy Carter. I think that's basically just on the looks alone. He looks like a Panthers version of Vince Lombardi in terms of how he's trying to dress. And like there's a picture of him at the sideline with his Carolina Panthers shirt and his hat and fuck him. I don't care about that analysis. Bryce Young,
he's not a patient man.
he is. Yeah, he's a brilliant financial mind.
Yes,
but
and didn't make $1 billion by going, hey, that's okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, maybe there is a difference between running things, but I'm sure he doesn't believe that
He has no idea.
Instant. Probably won't care. Doesn't care. He probably thinks he is master of the universe. Bryce Young looked a little bit more masterful at moments.
I thought so.
Last week or this Sunday. So yeah, I definitely think that this year we'll see more and more of Young. So I'm feeling Bryce Young.
Do you feel maybe like, if nothing else, that the people in charge in Carolina can like go for at least a week? Why didn't we draft that guy? Whichever one they were watching in the moment, Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I feel like that. I've gotten emails to as such actually from people who go, "Why couldn't we have drafted this guy?" Or
Right.
"Are you feeling like we should have drafted that guy?" Or "I wish you could have scout for." And I'm like, "It's not the scouts, my man. It's not the scouts. It was definitely
They know.
Yeah, it's the all-knowing mind of the super master villain, otherwise known as the NFL billionaire owner. At least this one, from what it sounds like, worked his way into this role.
Yeah, it's true.
So all due credit to Billy Carter, David Tepper Lombardi, that where we're going here. Drake London, on the other hand, we were kind of saying fuck his situation. But in the past couple weeks, looks like things have changed a little bit. Are you still kind of like, fuck his situation? Or are you feeling a little more?
Fuck his situation. And also be ready to pounce when there's a favorable matchup, as there was in this particular game, right? I mean, he should have smashed this game, and he did. And kudos to him. And it's encouraging, right? If you've invested in him and you're having a hard weekly decision when it comes time to play him, which I've had, this makes it a little easier to say, yeah, it's if he gets if I see the right matchup, hell yeah, he's capable. Like, last year, he was the guy that I invested in most of that receiving class as a rookie, mostly because of my draft pick positions, but also I thought he might be the best one. Well, so far, there are things conspiring to keep him from being that, but when you see a game like yesterday, you can see where that upside lives, and hopefully at some point, like watching that game yesterday, I felt like Desmond Ritter demonstrated he's not the answer. And hopefully somebody saw that and decides he's not the answer. We need to do something else. But I don't know that that's the case or not. But I think at some point when there's a real quarterback, he's a young man. We'll talk about Kyle Pitts here. He's also a young man. They have long-term hope.
Well, Falcons fans can't believe I'm about to do this because they think I have some evil conspiracy against Desmond Ritter. But it was two of those interceptions were arguably Bijan Robinson's fault Bijan
Fair.
Robinson. So, but I'll say this. I've certainly banged on Desmond Ritter enough over the past year and a half to say that he's still in his rookie phase. Doesn't look like he's gotten significantly better. But what I did see this week that encouraged me about Drake London are two things. One is that Ritter at least showed some trust to make some trust throws for London to go up and win. And second, it looks like Arthur Smith is maybe using more routes that get Drake London on the move and not these static ending routes like curls and stop routes and things that just settle somewhere, like more slants, more routes that actually have him breaking downfield and Desmond Ritter hitting him downfield as he's breaking in that direction. So that's a little bit more encouraging, but I'm with you. It's more of a matchup thing because, again, we're looking at Washington Commanders who gave up, 220 yards to DJ Moore. So
I might be a little bitter because I had London as my top DFS tournament play. I needed at least one, probably both of those touchdowns that Ritter threw going to him. Otherwise, it would have been a perfect game.
Yeah. Well, Kyle Pitts, he's looking a little better. It looked like he wasn't limping through the game, which he was a few weeks ago. Feeling any better about him, or is he still he's sitting on my bench unless there's a great matchup?
Well, probably that, but also, he's not sitting on any of my benches because I didn't draft him.
Me neither.
0% invested in Kyle Pitts. But, not because of him, more because of, the circumstances. Again, it just hasn't been ideal. And apparently Jonnu Smith is a much better player either way, so it doesn't really matter. Ross. Incoming. I believe Arthur and Jonnu might be related because
these Harris, we got the Harris clan and the Smith clan.
Right. No. Look, I mean, I do think, when he came out as a rookie, I had the first overall pick. I traded it away. And I was roundly chastised. You're letting go of a generational talent in his position. And maybe so. I had a good tight end was my excuse. Not Kyle Pitts good. Well, turns out I did. But I do think that this is like a slow burn. So if you invested in him, I mean, you're not moving on from him, right? This is just a wait for the circumstances. Tight ends play until they're like 90, or at least 35, or so. So he has what did he just turn 23?
Yeah. Well, he's in middle age according to Zoomers.
Yeah. They're wrong.
Okay. Well, yeah, I would say
long future ahead.
Little perspective. Yes, exactly. Kyle Pitts redraft, certainly feeling a little bit better about him after this week, but I would only say that it confirms that he's a matchup play in redraft. Dynasty, you hold on to him for dear life because things are going to change. And Jonnu Smith, I would agree with you that Jonnu Smith has, he breaks tackles. He's that third read. They seem to be able to find him on some scheme plays. And he's just been a solid play because he's not matched up with defenders that Kyle Pitts is.
I want to acknowledge, though, if you don't have Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce or Sam Laporta apparently, or TJ Hawkinson or Logan Thomas. I mean, there's a handful of guys that if once you get past that, I'll throw Evan Ingram in that mix as well, and probably Dallas Goedert because we've seen the upside now and it's been a couple good games for him. And maybe Darren Waller has that upside too, if that offense ever stops working. But I mean, if you're, there's not it's not like there's an entire universe of tight ends who are capable of setting the world on fire.
Yeah, if you were like the 8th, 9th, or 10th guy to pick a tight end and you wound up with Kyle Pitts,
you're probably sticking with him.
You're sticking with him probably, yeah. So what about Chuba Hubbard on the other side of the Panthers spectrum? We were talking about him a few weeks ago that he seemed to be a little bit better than. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Maybe it wasn't this one because I know you love yourself some Miles Sanders.
I don't love Miles Sanders.
You don't. That's right. You don't. It was somebody else I knew who loved Miles Sanders.
Fuck Miles Sanders.
Yeah. Are you feeling Chuba?
To the degree I feel pieces of this offense, not named Adam Thielen, yes. I think I feel him immensely. Because it's a low bar, right? It's a low bar. Outside of my... unabashed love for Adam Thielen, I'm not enthusiastic about this offense in general because I think you're taking your chances. That said, if you're taking your chances, take your chances with someone who's getting enough volume to do something with it. And as long as there is no Miles Sanders, and I don't know how bad the shoulder injury is, Chuba Hubbard looks like a great play. And when there is a Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard looks like better than whoever you're going to play in Arizona until James Conner gets back.
Well, I look at it this way. Chuba Hubbard, I thought outplayed Miles Sanders earlier in the season.
He did.
And he's certainly making better decisions than Miles Sanders does. So I'm kind of feeling him as the potential replacement to Miles Sanders if David Tepper doesn't interfere and say, well, the balance sheet says that this
I don't think David
better.
Tepper cares. I don't think once the money's spent, he's worried about the money. He's worried about winning. I'm going to give him that point, right? How much did he pay who was that coach, Matt Rule? He's paying him $500 million a week to go away, right? He doesn't care about the money.
He could literally buy dream houses in every state pretty much once a month with what he's making. Matt Rule rules, man. That's all I can say. He certainly has the
Clan Matt.
Yeah, Clan Matt. There we go. Because certainly there's no Clan Waldman. I'll put it that way. Nelson Agholor, are you feeling clannish about him, or are you just thinking whatever?
No, whatever. I'm still waiting for this offense to turn into this offense, right? You know, we were very excited about it early on, and it seems like it's still a work in progress to me. And that being the case, there are going to be weeks where certain players show up that you didn't expect to show up. And I mean, so if I'm deciding between him and Odell Beckham, I think you're just playing, and you're deciding on Odell Beckham, you're just playing the name. I don't think you want to play either of them.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
I would say that's
you play Zay Flowers is who you want to play.
Yeah, Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews are the guys. And really, though, behind the scenes, when you start really looking at what's going on, Lamar Jackson's playing really good football. The stats are kind of supporting that. Some of the next gen stats. Also, what's supporting that is that Greg Roman really didn't allow him to change plays at the line of scrimmage, and you're seeing him changing plays with success. And that's what's actually generating some chunk yardage for guys like Agholor and Beckham on occasion. The problem is that you're just not seeing enough of that in terms of spreading the ball around to a level where you have multiple fantasy talents other than the first two guys.
Like those two guys would make my hard wide receiver 3 decision on Drake London easy every week.
See, there you go. There you go. How about Chris Brooks? He hasn't really done a ton in terms of numbers, but he gets in at the ends of these games, and he's starting to play well, and he performs well, and he has some impressive-looking runs. And then on top of that, during the game when they don't have cleanup duty, they're using him as a blocker, and he's killing it. So do you think I'm not saying are you feeling him for fantasy right now, because that's the easy question. The easy question is fuck him for that. But the more interesting question is, are you feeling someone who's displaying what he's displaying as someone that maybe could overtake Salvon Ahmed and be the first in line behind Jeff Wilson when Wilson returns, so that if Wilson breaks down yet again, that Chris Brooks might be in that role as maybe a committee option in this Miami backfield? Are you feeling that possibility based on what his development timeline is?
You just sold it, man. No, I was already buying in. So I mean, I've been hearing about this guy going back to this summer from the beat writers that we talked to on the regular, who are out there, and they're trying to mention names that they think are going to make them look smart later in the year. And so whether they think that person is going to be an immediate contributor or not, they want to throw it out there. So when that person is an immediate contributor and they come back on my show, say, remember what I told you about this guy?
Works for me.
Well, here he is, right? So, but it's true, right? So, yeah. But I think the things that, that you're throwing out there, like the range of possible outcomes here, we've seen before. Not everybody on that, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr., not known to be super durable guys. I mean, I'm injury agnostic, but I can easily acknowledge when players have struggled to remain on the field over the course of their career. So, and it's a great offense. So, like, if I was sitting here, and as somebody who has, Keaton Mitchell sitting at the end of benches, probably I might have some Chris Brooks sitting on the end of benches as well, right? So I think it's a great offense, and he obviously was somebody that they were interested in keeping to the point where they moved on from a former starter in Myles Gaskin. So yeah, I think he is a guy that you should keep an eye on. And if you have super huge, really deep rosters like some of the leagues I'm in do, you should stash him at the end of your bench.
Yeah, I mean, I'll look at it this way. I would say that, Raheem Mostert is a Jaguar car. You know, I would say that Jeff Wilson is kind of a BMW. And then, HN is probably like a Ferrari, and Chris Brooks is more like that wrecker that comes to pick them up and is probably looks like it's already like 20 years old, but seems to get from point A to point B where it needs to be and drags whatever it needs to drag with him.
All right, we should probably acknowledge that, like, if he had the touchdown yesterday, we would be having a different conversation about him.
Yeah, probably would.
Same number of carries as Ahmed, more per carry, 4.7 to 3.8, just no touchdown.
And more impressive doing it, to be honest, from what you see on film. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, he actually got more than one catch for 1 yard on wasn't much more, but he was certainly, it looked like he was a little more involved in the offense.
Congratulations to him.
Yes.
And still sorry to all those who drafted him ahead of Tyler Lockett and a lot of players. Like, it's coming along. You told me how this was going to play out, that this was a next year thing. And I think it is. And, Seattle still, I think, runs more 12 than anyone else in the league, right? Or right up there. That's a limiting factor for him. And will probably continue to be. Maybe he can force them to adjust it over time. I talked to Michael Sean Dugar yesterday, and he kind of thought that, it was something that maybe we'll see a little more as the season goes on. And he earns some trust and, gets a better feel for the offense. I think the thing we all need to remember and you probably don't need to remember because you already know this, rookies are new to the pro game. And sometimes an adjustment is necessary, and not always, right? Like, some guys hit the ground running, some guys don't. Every player is a little different, needs a little time, no matter what their level of talent. It may be, like, apparently Jahmyr Gibbs is in this side of things. And my enthusiasm, my unbridled enthusiasm for him, mistook the fact that the Lions view him differently than I view him. They view him as an important piece of their team for many years, not just this year. And they're treating him like that. And maybe we're seeing the same thing with Jaxon Smith-Njigba.
Yeah, and I would probably add that the the biggest thing, and when I mentioned it to you, was probably week 2 or week 3 of the season, as opposed to the beginning of the season, because I was super high on Smith-Njigba. But when the 2 tackles were out, pretty much week 1, that pretty much ruined their 11 personnel, aspirations. But
right, he was. I think it's easy to forget too. He was hurt for a chunk of camp, had a broken wrist. Right?
But Seahawks got Charles Cross back, and so one of their tackles is back. That means that the other one's Jason Peters, which is fine. I mean, it's not
as old as me.
Yeah, but that's
much
okay.
Better player.
Yeah,
much better player.
Hey, old man game can work, so it works for you. So it probably works for Jason Peters too. So I think that helps out with Jaxon Smith.
I sit here and almost keep a straight face knowing I'm 40 years older than him.
But I mean, I think that you can see that they probably are a little bit more comfortable with using a little more 11 personnel, considering that Cross was back. So if they can get both their starting tackles back, I think by season's end, I think you'll see a jump in Jaxon Smith-Njigba's play. But right now, he's not. He's either a guy you have the luxury to keep on your roster and redraft, or you're just monitoring that he's going to get dropped eventually, and you might want to pick him up at the right time, because this is one of those classic cases where someone's going to have waited 4 or 5 weeks,
right,
and then go, I'm tired of it, and 2 weeks later, both tackles are back, and they go to 11 personnel more often. A guy that I can't believe I mentioned him. I guess I just felt like hearing you say curse is Darrynton Evans.
Feeling Roschon Johnson.
You contrary motherfucker. Okay. No, I think that's a fantastic way to state that. And I think, you look at Evans, he's got speed, he has experience in the system. And that just means that in case of an extreme emergency, they can put him in there, and he shouldn't screw up the entire works. But he's not a productive running back in the NFL.
and Deontay Foreman isn't always either, according to yesterday. But one thing about, something to be mindful of if you're out there in the listening world and you have a player who gets a concussion, make a move right away. Don't lose that guy, but only one player has made it back the week of a concussion all season long, and Johnson had 10 days, right? So, and he didn't make it back. So when one of your players becomes concussed, go out and grab a piece to fill the void, or try to leverage that. If you're looking in your league and somebody else's player gets a concussion, go out and try to leverage that move if you can for a short-term thing. It's not like something you need, it's not going to be long-term, but it's been pretty consistent this year.
Well, it looks like that, Christian McCaffrey was in that Lowe's commercial, and maybe in an off take, a Cleveland Brown rammed him into one of those lockers that he was slamming shut at the end there and messed up his oblique. Jordan Mason came in, scored a touchdown. Jordan Mason has been the cleanup duty guy. Elijah Mitchell, he got a little bit of an appearance, but then they quickly ushered him out because he's a jetpack with no compass. Do you think, are you feeling Jordan Mason as the injury replacement to Christian McCaffrey, or is this a committee?
It's a committee. It's a committee headed by Elijah Mitchell, when Elijah Mitchell is healthy enough to be the head of the committee, which feels like is coming. He was available this game. They obviously didn't. They were still using Mason, but I think at some point it turns back into Mitchell. It was his first week back after a couple-week absence. So I think that's the case. Like, I wouldn't mind, again, deep benches. If I have a deep bench, I wouldn't mind having him as a piece to have available if I needed him, because it's a very good offense, except when they play the Cleveland Browns. By the way, Kyle Shanahan is now 1-9 against Jim Schwartz in his career.
I love Jim Schwartz. So there we go. I think it's fun, and it's fun to watch Kyle Shanahan make faces, the way that he does on TV. Though I would say that the officials did screw over the 49ers on some of those calls.
There was some bad officiating just in general yesterday. There was some horrible officiating, including last night.
There are there's a lot of bang plays that you look at and you can understand why the officials make the calls they do, but they're just bad calls, regardless. And I certainly think that Cleveland benefited for sure from that, even as a Browns fan. I have to admit that. Jordan Mason, I like his game. I actually like it more than Elijah Mitchell all around, but Mitchell is going to get first crack at it. But if you're just looking for cheap guys to rotate onto a deep roster, Mason's one of those guys that could pop for you. Now, that's kind of the same thing that feels like the entire Cardinals backfield from top to bottom. Keontae Ingram got the most touches. He seemed to do pretty good with them overall, but didn't get a ton of them because they gave as many to Damian Williams, and then Amari DeMarcado was still into the mix. And who knows if they bring anybody else in after that. Tony Jones Jr. I think is next on the docket. So if you had to pick one, because I know you said earlier, I'm not picking any of them. I'd just rather have, Chuba Hubbard than any of those crapsters on the Cardinals. But if you had to pick one from that bin, who's the one that you're feeling?
It's the one the Cardinals picked before James Conner was hurt and before Keontae Ingram was hurt. It was Keontae Ingram. It was their choice.
Sometimes you just don't overthink it, huh?
Right. hate to be like all simple and whatnot, but it's my lane. So yeah. And I mean, I do think we try to overthink these things, and even guilty of that myself heading into this game, trying to sort through which one I wanted. There was leagues where I could have picked up either one, and I needed to figure it out. And, I got down into like, oh, look, and I have to say his name like my friend Stacy Perez of Fantasy and Frames, because I like to feel like I'm in Godfather too. Amari DiMarcado. But he was the guy who had gotten some looks in the passing game. Haven't seen that from Ingram, so thought maybe that was his pathway to success. I don't know that it is. So I probably just if you're after overcomplicating it last week, I think I will keep it simple going forward.
I think Keontae Ingram won another week of leading the backfield in touches, and I think it's as simple as that. I don't know if it's as that simple for Garrett Wilson. Are you feeling Garrett Wilson?
Fuck yeah. No, mostly I'm feeling the fact that I've been sitting here shouting all year that it's possible Zach Wilson could be a good enough quarterback to fuel Garrett Wilson's fantasy fortunes. I was correct. You're welcome, everybody.
Well, I'm about to burst your bubble, my
Stop
friend.
it!
Steve Bradbury, James Bradbury, the fourth.
It was there was issues.
Yeah.
I'm not denying that for this game in general, right? It was a huge game.
Well,
I'm not expecting that every week.
Okay. Back. Okay. Here we go.
I was answering a whole different question. I was answering the question I wanted.
I think you'll enjoy this because Mark Sanchez actually gave some cogent analysis that I thought was, that was probably the best thing that he did on Sunday, was talk about how Bradbury came up in the NFC South and was used to covering Mike Evans and Julio Jones, big players who may not be quite as shifty as Garrett Wilson. So his modus operandi was to play off coverage. And he gave up a lot of easy slants that even like Zach Wilson's, broken arm cousin probably could have at least gotten within range. So I think that Garrett Wilson is still a guy you want on your roster, but he's a matchup play, and maybe part of that is looking at the cornerbacks that are on that team and hoping that you can discern who's played a little bit more off or who's going to play tight man to man.
He's an easier wide receiver 3 decision than Drake London.
Yeah, I would say that's probably
and like more like a hard wide receiver 2 decision and maybe a little matchup base. But I think my point remains unchallenged.
All right. Well, so how about this? How about this, smart guy? Do you think that Jaylen Herz can support more than one Eagles receiver in a week? And I'm not counting Swift. I'm counting just AJ Brown, or it's either an AJ Brown week or it's or because against tougher defenses, I've noticed against tougher defenses, like above average defenses, it's one guy, and it's usually AJ
Mountains
Brown.
of evidence to the contrary notwithstanding, I do think it's possible, but it's not likely. I mean, like one at a time seems to be the way this is going.
Yeah. It just feels like that. Yeah, he can pepper some of those guys, but he's not able to, if they make, against the Rams, they made Dallas Goedert the priority in that game. But there were only 2 games through last week, through week 5, where they essentially had 2 guys.
Maybe Devontae Adams needs to pitch some more hissy fits on the sidelines, and he might get course corrected like AJ Brown's been course corrected.
Well, was he pitching fits because Michael Mayer led the offense essentially? Is it Michael Mayer time? Are we all aboard the Michael Mayer rookie train, or what?
Everybody who drafted him in Dynasty should be super encouraged, and he's starting to look like a really good player, and it's been, pretty narrow sample size. But I mean, I think if you did invest in him and you probably expected more than you've gotten to this point, you'll take whatever you can get. But I think from an objective, standing back and just looking at it, he looks like a tough guy who can make some plays, get a little yardage on his own with physical toughness, and he's a big body. So I think at some point he's going to emerge. It might not be I'm not expecting a consistent redraft play this year, though.
Yeah, he's a good zone player who handles zone really well, and he's a good man-to-man guy in the red zone. He has just enough athletic ability to be a matchup play with his skill at the catch
Why are you
point.
describing Cole Kmet?
Oh, because they both went to Notre Dame. Logo scouting, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. No, Cole Kmet. Yeah, Michael Mayer can block a little bit better, I would say, at certain points. So Kmet's bigger. Yeah, I don't know. Damien Pierce, are you feeling that? Because Devin Singletary, they wanted to establish the run, and it looked like Devin Singletary was became the hot hand last week.
Yeah, he, when you drafted Dameon Pierce, you expected him to be the primary piece every single week, and even if it wasn't going great, you would maybe get something a little better than people who drafted Rashad White are getting. I don't know. Maybe that's shifted. I don't want to change my entire philosophy. Again, I did not draft a lot of Dameon Pierce, so I'm not having to make a lot of decisions about him on a weekly basis. but it seems like it would be a hard decision for me to keep him as as one of my top 2 running backs. I'm hoping I've developed somebody else that's emerged and is getting a more robust workload or doing more with the work that they're getting.
Yeah, I'd like to say fuck Bobby Slowick for not really getting the most out of Dameon Pierce, but Bobby Slowick's done a really good job with this offense. So I can't really say that.
Previous 2 weeks were kind of encouraging too, though, right? Like, I mean, it started to look like and so maybe maybe I'm putting too much emphasis on a single game, and I probably should. It's the New Orleans defense is pretty tough, so yeah. That's part of it. But that said, Devin Singletary seemed to be just fine.
Yeah, he did, and I'm just sad because Damien Pierce is a really good pass receiver, and I feel like they've done mostly a poor job of not exploiting that from his game. He should be earning a lot more targets than he is. And I like how he runs the football. I like how he plays, but apparently, it's not enough in terms of that. So
generally speaking, though, would like to say I'm feeling those Texans. Way to go, DeMeco Ryans.
Yeah, I would say that's true. I feel the same way. Chris Olave.
By the way, one more thing about that game.
Here we go.
I invested Dynasty shares, deep Dynasty shares in a receiver based on information I got from a Draftnik guy, and Xavier Hutchinson, and I saw signs of it. Thank you, Matt Waldman.
Oh, well, don't thank me yet, because he may just be stuck on special teams and doing end arounds all his life. So,
look, and as long as he is on a roster, he will be on mine.
Yeah, I like that dude, Xavier Hutchinson. I'm feeling him low key. Are you feeling Chris Olave a little more than low key now that you've seen him against this Texas team that you just praised, and he led them in receiving?
They are a pretty tough defense. I think feeling Derek Carr's shoulder feeling better is what I'm feeling. Like I don't think Olave went anywhere. I think the ability to go from pop gun to BB gun to low caliber rifle, and hopefully the trajectory continues and Chris Olave continues to benefit from it.
Listen, don't mess with Bob. He knows his guns. That's what we've learned today. DeAndre Hopkins, are you feeling him, or is this all dependent on whether Ryan Tannehill can stay healthy?
I don't know. Maybe if Ryan Tannehill can't stay healthy, we'll all be in better shape. The offense is not a reliable passing offense for fantasy purposes, generally speaking. And up to this point, it's been pretty reliable for Derrick Henry managers. It's become not that either. It's become less reliable. Although I still, watching yesterday, Derrick Henry's still doing the Derrick Henry things, the breakaway runs and all those things. I think maybe he will convince them to turn this back into the Derrick Henry show, which they tend to do as the season goes on anyway. But for the passing pieces, it's hard to get excited because it's a grab bag and you don't know what you're getting from week to week. I think if you're grabbing one piece, it's the Hopkins is the piece to grab, but you've got to realize the range of possible outcomes is not always going to yield great results.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that there's a big concern with what we have with Tannehill, whether or not he can stay healthy, and I think that's probably the biggest issue with this offense. But DeAndre Hopkins overall, until last week, if we were looking, and yeah, he's been good. I mean, first 5 weeks of the season, we're looking at, where are we? Hopkins, he was still a low-end wide receiver 3, up until last week. And last week he drew a couple of pass interference plays, but that doesn't help you in fantasy. So I agree with you. It's kind of more up and down. He's an inconsistent wide receiver 3 at this point, who gives you wide receiver 1 upside and then gives you the downside of basically shutting you out of your starting lineup for that spot. So he's a high variance player at this stage of the game. But one thing that isn't high variance is getting a chance to, hang out with Bob Harris and see him deliver the work that he delivers every week. He's at Football Diehard on Twitter. You can find him at Football Diehards. Man in the Sales, the Boiler Room, the doing underwater demonstration.
Yelling at people and pounding on my big fake desk on YouTube that I'm not.
I do enjoy that every once in a while. I do try to get you laugh, but usually you handle it with aplomb.
Well,
So.
I don't see your comment. It's like I'm like 5 minutes or 10 minutes behind the comments as I'm trying to work through the questions, and I don't see you until after you leave, so you don't hear all my smart ass comments to what your smart ass comments were.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because I kind of bop in and out from there. And then I got more.
Come in and
I
you
got
like
more of these people to
drive-by
listen
commentary.
to. Pretty
Drive-by
much.
commentary, and so you're not there when I catch up with you and fire back with undoubtedly high-end sarcasm.
Yeah, very much so. Well, you can find this high-end sarcasm at Matt Waldman on Twitter. You can also find it occasionally filtering through my work at footballguys.com, which I'll have an article out sometime tonight, maybe early tomorrow. Most likely tonight, because they give me the Tuesday deadline. I like to come in ahead of time. So that's the way things work. We'll tune in next week. Love you, Bob. Bye.
Love you. Bye.